All right, so get this. What if every single time you got frustrated with an AI and had to type out a correction, you weren't just fixing a simple mistake? What if you were actually teaching it, making it smarter? Today, we are diving into a really cool new method called Drift, which basically turns all of our complaints into the perfect training fuel for building better AI.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You ask a chatbot what you think is a simple question, it gives you an answer that is just confidently, completely wrong, and then you have to sigh and type out the right answer for it. It's super annoying. But it turns out that exact moment of frustration, well, that's where things get really interesting. So let's look at this classic example from the research paper. On the left, you see the AI gets it wrong, and the user corrects it. That's what researchers call a dissatisfaction signal, or DSAT. On the right, the AI gets it right, and the user says thanks. That's a satisfaction signal, or SAT. Now, for years, AI developers have been chasing the stuff on the right, the praise. But it turns out the real treasure was on the left all along.
And this gets us to what you could call the feedback paradox. It's this core problem where AI models desperately need us, the users, to give them feedback so they can get better. But actually getting that feedback in a way that's useful is incredibly difficult.
I mean, let's be real. When was the last time you actually clicked that little thumbs up or thumbs down button after a chatbot response? The data shows that basically nobody does it. So when you're relying on just that tiny 1 to 3% of users, you're trying to improve your AI based on a super incomplete picture of what's actually going on.
But here's where it gets wild. When researchers actually looked at real conversations, like over 1 million of them, they found something fascinating. Those signals of dissatisfaction, when a user corrects the AI or just shows they're frustrated, they happen more than twice as often as signals of satisfaction. It seems we're just way more likely to complain than we are to praise.
And that's really the heart of the problem. Most AI training is built to learn from positive reinforcement, from seeing the right answers. But if you look at the real world, those positive signals are incredibly rare. So you've got this whole system that's hungry for something we almost never give it.
So this is where the big aha moment comes in. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if we just stop trying to chase those rare little moments of praise, and instead we focus on the most common signal we actually have, our complaints? What if our dissatisfaction is actually the key?
And that brings us to Drift. The name is a mouthful, Dissatisfaction Refined Iterative Preference Training. But the idea behind it is actually incredibly simple and powerful. It's a whole new way to teach an AI, and it's built entirely around anchoring the training on real complaints and corrections from real users.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? I mean, how do you take a negative thing, like a complaint, and turn it into a positive learning moment for an AI? Well, the process is just brilliantly simple.
It works like this. First, you start with an anchor. That's a real example of a bad response that a user complained about. Then, you just ask the AI you're training to try again, to generate a totally new response. And here's the magic trick. You simply tell the model, hey, this new one you just made is better than that old bad one. The new one doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be better. Then you just do it again, and with each cycle, the AI gets a little bit smarter.
Now that's a really elegant idea, right? But the big question is, does it actually perform in the real world? Well, let's take a look at the numbers, because honestly, they are pretty stunning.
On one of the key benchmarks they tested, a 14 billion parameter model that was trained using Drift saw its win rate shoot up by over 12%. Now that might not sound like a lot, but in the world of AI performance, that is a massive, massive improvement.
And it's not a fluke. This performance really holds up even against some tough competition. They tested it on something called WildBench, which is full of really tricky real-world user prompts, and Drift just consistently comes out on top. Look at that score, 58.30. It doesn't just crush the original base model. It actually outperforms other really strong training methods too.
And honestly, here is the result that made me go, whoa, a 14 billion parameter open source model using this Drift training method actually managed to outperform GPT-4o Mini, a really well-known and powerful commercial model, on that same benchmark. This is huge. It shows that a smarter way of training can help these smaller models punch way, way above their weight class.
But the story gets even cooler, because Drift's real superpower isn't just about getting higher scores. It's about how it gets them. And it reveals something really fundamental about creativity in AI.
You see, most AI training methods are designed to narrow the AI's focus, to push it towards one single best answer.
The problem is, sometimes this can backfire, and the AI gets stuck in a kind of creative rut, just giving the same boring response over and over. But Drift, because it's always sampling new potential answers, actually encourages the model to explore a much wider variety of good solutions.
And this is a perfect example of what that looks like. When they asked an AI to write a research paper, most models just gave back a boring wall of text. But the model trained with Drift did something totally different. It figured out all on its own to use markdown formatting, like bolding for titles, creating separate sections, to make the output look and feel like a real academic paper. It didn't just find a better answer, it found a more creative and way more useful way to solve the problem.
So really the big takeaway here is this. Our feedback, our little corrections, all those moments of frustration, they aren't just a simple bug fix. They're actually a compass, and they're guiding AI not just towards better answers, but towards a broader, more diverse, and maybe even a more creative way of thinking.
And that kind of leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought, doesn't it? If the secret to a smarter, more creative AI is already hiding in our everyday complaints, just think, what other massive breakthroughs are just waiting to be discovered in the simple ways we talk to our technology every single day?